The morning had begun before dawn, with Clara awake in the narrow bed of her childhood room, staring at the pale ceiling while the house breathed around her. Every sound felt louder than usual, the creak of the floorboards as her aunt moved about, the distant lowing of cattle, the wind brushing against the shutters. Today was the day everyone in Westlove had been talking about for months, and the weight of it pressed on her chest even before her feet touched the floor. They dressed her slowly, carefully, as if she were made of something fragile. The dress had been sewn by hand, lace-stitched with patience and hope, every seam carrying the quiet expectations of the women who hovered around her. Clara barely spoke. She smiled when she was told to smile, nodded when questions were asked, but inside she felt like she was standing on the edge of something vast. She had known Caleb Hart for years, had watched him ride past fields and fences, had heard his laughter spill out of the saloon and echo across open land. Marrying him still felt unreal, like stepping into someone else's life. By the time the sun climbed higher, the small wooden chapel was full. Dusty boots lined the steps outside, horses tied to the posts, their tails flicking lazily. Inside, the air was warm and thick with anticipation. Clara stood behind the closed doors, her bouquet clutched so tightly her fingers ached. Her legs already felt weak, not from walking, but from standing still too long, from holding herself together. When the doors opened, sound rushed in, music, murmurs, the scrape of benches as people turned to look. Clara took her first step forward and felt every eye on her. The aisle seemed longer than she remembered, stretching ahead like a narrow path through unfamiliar land. She focused on placing one foot in front of the other, on the soft rhythm of the music guiding her forward. Then she saw him. Caleb waited at the altar, hat in hand, shoulders squared but eyes alive. He wasn't smiling broadly the way men often did on such days. Instead, there was something steady in his expression, something that told her he understood how much this moment mattered. When their eyes met, her breath caught. For just a second, the crowd faded. The whispers disappeared, and it was only the two of them, standing on opposite ends of a promise. Each step toward him loosened something inside her and tightened something else. Memories rose unbidden. Caleb helping her father fix a broken fence years ago. The way he'd always tipped his hat when she passed. The rare moments when they'd spoken alone and she'd felt seen, without being overwhelmed. The man everyone called Insatiable stood now as calm as the earth itself. The vows came and went in a blur. Clara barely remembered the words leaving her mouth. Only the warmth of Caleb's hand closing around hers when she faltered. His thumb brushed against her knuckles, grounding her. When he said "I do," it sounded less like a declaration and more like a certainty that had always existed. Applause erupted, sharp and joyful. Someone laughed, someone cried. Clara felt lightheaded, as if the air had thinned. By the time they turned to walk back down the aisle together, her knees trembled. She leaned slightly toward Caleb, careful not to show the strain, determined to appear composed. This was what she had been taught, to endure, to carry herself with grace. Outside, the celebration exploded into life. Children ran between tables, skirts swirled. Men clapped Caleb on the back hard enough to make Clara flinch for him. She smiled until her cheeks hurt, accepted hugs and congratulations, listened to stories she'd already heard a dozen times. The sun beat down, the day stretching endlessly ahead with its music and dancing and expectation. Hours passed. Clara danced when asked, laughed when it seemed appropriate, but the tiredness crept deeper into her bones. Her boots rubbed against her heels, her back ached, and the constant noise made her head spin. She watched Caleb from across the yard at one point, surrounded by men who admired him, and felt a strange mix of pride and uncertainty. This was her husband now. This life was hers. As evening approached, the light softened, turning the world gold. The music slowed, conversations quieted, and Clara realized with a small start that she could barely feel her legs. When she stood, the ground seemed to sway. She took a step and nearly stumbled. Caleb was there instantly, his hand firm on her elbow. "Easy," he murmured, concern flickering across his face. She tried to laugh it off, but the sound came out thin. "I'm so tired," she admitted, her voice low so only he could hear. The honesty of it surprised her. "I can't walk." For a heartbeat, she worried he might think her weak, might expect her to push through as everyone else did. Instead, his expression softened. Without a word, he slipped an arm behind her knees and another around her back and lifted her as if the decision had been made long before she spoke. A collective gasp rippled through the guests, followed by cheers and laughter. Someone whistled. Clara's face burned, but she couldn't help the smile that spread as she instinctively wrapped an arm around Caleb's neck. From this height, the world looked different, less heavy, less demanding. She rested her head against his shoulder and felt his steady heartbeat beneath her cheek. "Looks like I've got you," he said quietly, amusement and promise woven together, as he carried her toward the wagon waiting to take them home. Clara felt the exhaustion finally give way to something else, a deep, unfamiliar relief. The day had taken everything she had, but in return it had given her this moment, this understanding that she did not have to carry the weight alone. The cheers faded behind them. The path ahead lit by the first stars, and for the first time since morning, Clara let herself simply be held. The house welcomed them with a quiet that felt almost sacred. After the noise and movement of the celebration, the stillness wrapped around Clara like a soft blanket. The front door closed with a gentle click, shutting out the distant laughter and fading music from the yard. A single lantern glowed on the table, its light warm and steady, illuminating the simple room that was now theirs. Caleb set her down carefully as if even the air might bruise her. Clara's legs trembled when her feet touched the floor, and she reached for the chair beside the table, sitting slowly. The tiredness was deeper now, not sharp but heavy, like she had carried the whole day on her back. She looked around, taking in every detail, the rough wooden walls, the neatly folded blanket on the bed, the window where moonlight spilled in like silver dust. It all felt unfamiliar and intimate at once. "You sit," Caleb said softly. He poured water from the pitcher into a glass and placed it in her hands. His movements were unhurried, thoughtful, as if he understood that tonight wasn't about urgency but about easing into something new. Clara sipped the coolness grounding her and let out a long breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. "I didn't think I'd be this worn out," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. Saying it aloud felt strange, like confessing something she'd always kept hidden. Caleb leaned against the table, watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read. "You gave everything you had today," he said. "That kind of tired isn't something to apologize for." She smiled faintly at that, the words settling into her chest. He knelt in front of her and reached for her boots, his hands gentle as he loosened the laces. Clara stiffened for a moment, unused to being tended to, then slowly relaxed as he slid them off and set them aside. When his hands brushed her ankles, the touch was brief and respectful, but it sent a shiver of awareness through her. Not fear, just the realization that closeness had a new meaning now. When he stood, she noticed the change in him too. The restless edge she had always seen was still there, but tempered, focused. The man known for wanting more of everything seemed, in this moment, content to simply be present. "Come," he said, offering his hand. She took it, letting him guide her toward the bed. Sitting down, Clara felt the softness beneath her and sighed without meaning to. The sound made Caleb smile. "I really can't walk anymore," she said quietly, half joking, half serious. "That's all right," he replied. "You don't have to." They sat side by side, the space between them small but noticeable. Clara's thoughts drifted, nerves fluttering in her stomach. She had imagined this night countless times, always with fear mixed into the anticipation. But now that it was here, the fear felt distant, replaced by something gentler and more complex. Caleb reached up and slowly removed his hat, setting it aside with care. Then he turned toward her. "Clara," he said, her name steady on his tongue. "We don't have to do anything tonight that you're not ready for." "I meant what I said earlier, one step at a time." Her eyes met his, searching for doubt or impatience and finding neither. The honesty in his voice loosened something inside her. She nodded, emotion tightening her throat. "Thank you." Silence settled between them again, comfortable this time. Outside, a night bird called, and somewhere far off the wind moved through the grass. Clara leaned back against the pillows, her body finally giving in to exhaustion. Caleb stood, extinguished the lantern until only a soft glow remained, then lay beside her, careful not to crowd her space. She turned her head toward him, studying the lines of his face in the dim light. This was her husband. The word felt enormous. She wondered how someone could feel both so small and so full at the same time. "I was scared," she admitted, the confession slipping out before she could stop it. Of today, of everything after. Caleb shifted slightly, propping himself on one elbow. "I know," he said simply. "So was I." The admission surprised her. You? She asked. Everyone thinks you're fearless. He smiled, a real smile this time, softer than any she'd seen before. They don't see what's inside. Wanting a lot out of life doesn't mean you don't fear losing it. Her hand found his almost without thought, fingers brushing, then settling. He didn't pull her closer, didn't rush the moment. He just held her hand warm and steady. Clara closed her eyes, focusing on that simple connection, on the rhythm of their breathing slowly aligning. "I feel so safe," she whispered, the words carrying more meaning than she could explain. Caleb squeezed her hand gently. "That's what matters." The tiredness claimed her gradually. Her thoughts grew hazy, the day finally releasing its grip. As she drifted, she became aware of Caleb adjusting the blanket around her, tucking it up over her shoulders with quiet care. She felt his presence beside her, solid and reassuring, like the land he loved. Just before sleep fully took her, Clara murmured, "If I get tired again..." Too tired to keep up. He leaned closer, his voice low and certain. "I'll carry you," he said, "as long as you need." A small smile curved her lips as she surrendered to rest. Outside, the stars burned bright over Westlove. And inside the little house, two lives settled into a shared stillness. The day had ended. The future stretched wide and unknown, but for now, Clara slept knowing she was no longer walking alone.